that does work. They don't, okay, I got
Got
it.
it.
If we can stand, pledge allegiance to the flag. I don't need it, I was just kidding. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Commissioner Weingart?
Mm-hmm. Here.
Nelson?
Here.
Commissioner Baldwin?
Yes.
Commissioner Phipps?
Here.
Vice Chair Janowski?
Here.
And Chair Casissa.
Here. Okay, this is open time for public discussion, comment. Anybody from the public wishing to speak? Okay, I will close public comment. 3, we have no presentations, nothing other under the consent calendar. Commissioner reports for November. Nothing to report. I think it was also December. Was there anything town council, Marie, Park and Rec related? November,
The only
December?
item is something that's on your agenda
Okay.
for tomorrow.
Which we'll be discussing later, right?
It's more of an update, but yes.
Okay, all right. Anything on the IGC Programming Ad Hoc Committee? I don't know if you guys met at all this week or
We
this month?
haven't met since the,
We met in early December, right? No, before Thanksgiving?
it was,
The last time?
yeah,
Okay. So we've met since October, I guess is the point.
okay.
Um,
I had to leave early.
Yeah, so it was the second meeting of the, of that, I don't have it. Sorry, not used to that. So that ad hoc committee met right before Thanksgiving, and so that's our second meeting we've had, and really good constructive conversation about programming between using the intergenerational space as well as the community center, and updates on at that point where we were developing the brochure for the winter spring. So it was a really good conversation continuing from the meeting before, which had to do with directions of which way, the sort of intent of what the commission, the town, and what the group wants to focus on in terms of who we're trying to outreach to. So there was some good exchange of ideas, as well as looking at how best to break down the demographics and the specifics on who we're trying to address. It was good. It was a really good meeting, I thought, and we're going to meet again in early January, the second week of January, I believe. We have a date set for that. So we'll have more to report for you in January as well.
Okay. Any individual commissioner updates? I just have one. As the Lions, we actually helped out with Breakfast with Santa this year, which, as usual, was a great success on Park and Rec's part. But I'll compliment them also because past years, I think you guys have had a cook that you've used from Marin Joe's. This year, I guess the cook went AWOL. They couldn't find him. So actually, I think Brian was back there, Christina, Lizzie, and somebody else was back there. They did the cooking.
Actually, yeah.
So, and actually, I think it worked out better. There's probably more work for them, but I think it was a lot better than when the cook was there, to tell you the truth. I think it went a lot smoother.
Yeah, we did have, we probably had maybe like a 20% increase from the year before. And Brian said it went really smoothly. I wasn't there, but Brian said it went really well, and he really appreciated the help from all the volunteers as well. So please pass that on to the Lions Club.
Yeah, okay. No, it went really well.
Yeah, thank you.
Executive Advisory Committee, we did not meet. So with that, we'll move it on to the director's reports.
Okay, so just want to touch on a few things. The Neil Cummins Gym, as I've mentioned before, we're in the busy season for the gym, which means the gym is pretty much occupied Monday through Sunday, Monday through Friday, 6 to 10, and then on the weekends, pretty much 8 a.m. to almost 8 p.m. and sometimes 10 p.m. This does come with its challenges because the scheduling for the gym is pretty tight. There's not a lot of leeway between different groups that start at 8, finish at 10, and the other ones start at 10 o'clock on the dot. I have met with representatives from the school district, and will continue to, because we do have some challenges with the way the gym is being left and cleaned, prepared for the next group, and prepared for the weekend, or prepared for the school week. So there's a few challenges there because we do have a lot of people using that gym. So, excuse me. I do want to make you prize that. It's an ongoing conversation because we're getting into. I mean, the gym is fairly new, but it does get used a lot. So there's leaks starting to happen. There's, some just general deferred maintenance that might need to be looked at, so. But overall, it's going pretty well.
Is that on the school district?
Yeah, that's on the school district,
Okay.
but I mean, we certainly assist with,
Cleanup.
cleanup and helping them know, when we notice things that come up over the weekend. It's funny, just a real, like, on the side story. In the first couple of years that we were using the gym, the school district didn't realize that we were using it over Christmas break and over the New Year's break. So they would shut down all the,
Electrical.
all the thermostats, so there's no heat. So the first couple of years the gym was active. It was one of those really cold, Christmas breaks, and that building gets really cold and it takes a little while to heat up. So, but just that general communication with the school district is what my point of my comment is. So we're working with them and there's good communication there. So we're trying to problem solve those things that are happening. Do want to mention, Breakfast with Santa was a great success as far as Brian mentioned. He had a nice email out to his staff that did a great job, and a big thanks to the Lions Club. He has not ceased to mention that. We'll also mention that we hosted the town band holiday concert last Friday, which went really well. They're changing their sort of the ways that they present the concert itself. They're always trying to change it up and make things more fun. So it was interesting to work with Lloyd and the group on that. So I appreciate their help, and I understand the Lions Club helped out that evening with
The bar.
with the bar. Yeah. So
I think they used round tables that night also to make it a little bit more formal.
yeah, and I just trying to make it a more festive atmosphere. So I think they really. It was a really thoughtful event. That they worked on it for a while. There was I know they provided food, which I don't know if they've done before, so it was good. Do want to mention a couple things on the outdoor side. The fields are technically closed for the winter. The fences went up on the west field for the moment. The east field is being used currently by one user group, the Highlanders rugby group, that practices a few days a week. We're in constant communication with them about the condition of the fields and whether we want them to practice or not. They are being very conscientious of the kind of impact that they can have, because they do have a lot of kids out there. So I'm working with John Vantros, we're talking all the time about whether or not we should be using the fields, and we check the fields on a regular basis. They were out there today. I told them it'd be all right. We did have a lot of rain yesterday, but the fields were okay. Not great, but okay. So the idea for the fields would be once the Highlanders are done, which is probably close to March, we would switch maintenance operations from the west side of the park to the east side of the park. So the east field would be cordoned off for a period of time, and we would open up the west field. This is all very dependent on weather, how well the maintenance that Public Works is working on over the winter break. They were able to get some seed on some parts of the park, but not a lot. There is aeration, rolling the field as well, trying to smooth it out, is all happening over the next few months. So hopefully the fields will be in pretty good shape for the spring. And they actually were in pretty good shape this year, considering the amount of use that they got, so, which is good. Actually, ironically, the most damage came from the very, very last possible Saturday we could have played soccer out there. They did get beat up a little bit, but overall they're in much, much better shape than they have been in the past few years. So kudos to Public Works on helping us out with that. Do you want to mention Summer Playground? You will be meeting our new Summer Playground director at the next meeting, I believe, in January. Shanat has been with us for several years. She assisted Ashley last year with Summer Playground, and she's been promoted to Summer Playground Director. So she started working, excuse me, about 2 weeks ago on upcoming plans for next year. So we'll do a brief intro of her at the next meeting, and field any questions you might have at that point. Not a formal presentation,
Okay.
but
Just like a meet and greet.
Yeah, a little meet and greet, exactly. I do want to mention capital projects. We are continuing to work on the basketball court, the Park and Rec administrative offices, which are the priority right now. The basketball court, we're finalizing the plan. It does not look like we need to go out to bid like we potentially thought. There's some leeway there that we won't be able to move forward with that fairly quickly, get that done early spring. So that's good news. And the project for the fields that we're looking at is another one that'll be a good conversation for the commission to have with the public as well as the council in 2019. And we'll be looking at putting together some real formal plans for that towards the end of this next fiscal year. So that project probably will not be looked at in terms of completion until 2020, just to update the commission on that. Sorry. Skunk Hollow is another project that is of interest to the public. I'm hoping to, with direction from the commission, have a meeting in either January or February with the design group of Ross Recreation to look at different options for Skunk Hollow in terms of the playground structure, and be looking at inviting the neighborhood at that point. Ross Recreation's ready to go. It's maybe more in terms of if the commission's ready to take that conversation on. But that's in the pipeline, so we're looking forward to that. And I'm hoping to, again, sorry, just to back up one step, work with the commission in terms of how we want to best approach that, because I was hoping to coordinate that with the same night that Peter Brown, Director of Public Works, would be here that same evening. So whether that's in January or February, if we have a preference, we can have that conversation as well. So looking forward to that.
Okay. Why don't we try to shoot for January if we can?
Okay.
If possible, sooner the better.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be a problem at all. It's just a matter of how much time we want to look at in terms of reaching out to the community and making sure that they know, and inviting them to the meetings to get some good, thoughtful conversation going. And that doesn't mean it has to be stick to one meeting too. We can go for two.
We may have to go for two.
Yeah.
Do you have a schedule in your head how things might unfold with Skunk Hollow long term?
No, not at the moment. Lastly, do want to mention the commission wish list. So one item that we have had in the past on the December agenda has been the commission wish list, and this is something that we review on a somewhat annual basis. I think with the sort of the changeovers that we've had in administration the last couple of years, I think it's important for us to keep reviewing that and maybe take a couple of meetings to sort of revisit it, solidify that, along with coordinating some more long-term plans that the town might have with different facilities. Because there's conversations about, this building, the fire department, there's a lot of conversations with Skunk Hollow, and the Tamil Plaza, sorry, what is it? The
Cafe Verde.
Where the pet club is. Sorry. So I think in terms of facility-wise, that's something that we should take some good time to discuss, and as well as, but again, the commission wish list is something that, it's a from a 1-year plan to a 5-year plan out,
Right.
In terms of what the commission wishes to look at, whether it's facilities, programs, master plans, things like that.
Can you just quickly give background on what the wish list is?
Yeah, so we've had things on there like the shade structure, tennis court lights, tennis court resurfacing. There was conversation about synthetic fields, bathrooms over by the playground, things that would ideally feed into the capital project budget when we start looking at that in April and May. So it's a good, timely conversation to have, things to think about. We'll present the existing list to the commission in January. It might be a good time to bring that up because we'll be talking about Skunk Hollow. And so it's just a good place for the commission to look at different things that the commission has looked at in the past and hoping to look at more in the future. And again, anywhere from simple projects to, like a water fountain to, something that we can do more long-term, and then at least start the conversation about funding and, different types of levels of projects that we're looking at.
Right. The other thing, when you give that list, what I'd be curious to see on that list is how many of those projects we came up with like 2 years ago that actually came, or they're in the pipeline somehow. Either they came like
Sure.
shade
We have the
structure,
wish list
or even like, I know like
past years.
artificial turf came up 3 or 4 years ago. Just
And
more interest.
interestingly enough, the priorities may have changed on some of those, on that wish list as well. I know there's
Right.
some things that might have been high priority, some were lower, and that may have shifted around a bit in the past. I do recommend the commission look that in the context of what's in the current master plan. Because one thing that I'd like to recommend for us to look at in the next year and a half or so would be a revisit of that master plan that we do have currently and updating that.
like
Because
10 years old, isn't it?
it's 12 years old at this point. Yeah, be a good time to look at it.
I got one more under,
Yeah, I have a-
I'm sorry,
I
go
was
ahead.
going to say, in the past, I think when we talked about wish list / master plan, you had some input from town manager Cusimano, and it'd be helpful if you had anything that he wanted to pass along as far as think about this but not this. And
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the current projects, you guys are all pretty well aware of what is on the front burner at the moment. But certainly does not mean that we can't look at other projects. I presented a map to the commission and to the town manager for things that we were looking at, family picnic sites, shaded areas for picnics, upgraded picnic facilities for barbecues and benches and things like that. So, yeah, it's a good time to look overall at what we're looking at in terms of the park, which would be Town Park, the Cove, Mankey Park. I know there's other groups that are working on different projects with Mankey Park as well. So, be a good time to have a conversation about that.
Okay.
Can
Yeah,
I,
go
just a
ahead.
quick
No, go
question,
ahead.
Mario, on following up on the hoops court. How do we loop Sean and Will into DPW's kind of design process, just to make sure that what DPW now is working on is in sync with what we talked about as a group?
Sure. So we're at the point right now. I actually met with Peter and RJ and Jared, the Public Works Engineering Department this morning, to get sort of status update where we are now and where we're going to shoot for being, like let's say the end of January. And what we're looking at doing is, although we didn't use a landscape architect in terms of producing documents and work orders for this, we will be looking at having actually RJ, our engineers, RJ and Jared, put together some CAD drawings on what the expectation level is of the site. So we have some site plans. From that point, we'd be looking at having a continued conversation with the community, which we would then, have that in front of the commission and the group. I mean, everything has been vetted for the most part. It's more of, crossing the T's, dotting the I's at this point, and then, authorization for bid or for contract at that point. So we're looking at hopefully, we'll be able to loop them in at that point. So
maybe January?
Yeah, pretty quickly.
Okay, and okay, and anytime you communicate with them, will you just loop me in, since Sean tends to reach out to me looking for updates?
Sure, no, absolutely, no, and I've been on those emails, and
Okay.
I apologize for
That's
not
okay.
reaching out to Sean.
Don't worry, I mean, I can be the liaison, I'm happy to do it. I
Yeah.
just don't want to feel like there's like a whole process going on, I don't know what's happening, I tell him like, I don't know, so. it would
Well,
be great.
I mean, but in all honesty, it's one of those things where it's the squeaky wheel gets the oil. It's it's a priority list of things that
Right,
we were, and I'll briefly mention this. We were nowhere near going through a large repair project for the tennis court lights, but we had gotten a ton of feedback from the neighbors, tennis court users, about the lights and how they were working and not working. So the Public Works Department went ahead and took care of that eventually. None of this is their fault, like for, like slacking on it, but it's one of those things where it's like, what's the best use of how to repair something that needs to be replaced?
Right.
And that's an ongoing conversation and a struggle for staff to look at that. But they have been repaired. you know, so it's a temporary fix, not a
So
long-term
have
solution.
Sean show up with about 200 people to Peter's office.
There, yeah. And then on the fields, are we comfortable holding that timeline to, I mean, because again, I get questions from people. What's going on with the fields? I mean, are we going to be comfortable saying 2020 completion?
I'm not at the moment, but
If that's our target?
we can certainly shoot for that, yeah.
All right.
I mean, these are really involved conversations with the school district, you know,
I know, but
funding.
does that, I mean, 6 months of that, or like, is it Todd doing that? I mean, just as a commissioner, I feel like, I know these things do take a lot of time, but is it like 3 months to then get on Brett's calendar and then talk about it again in 2 months, or like, are there?
No, I mean,
just-
I think it's, there's a combination of things. One is, the conversation's always open between us and the school
Right.
district. And I met with Brett a couple weeks ago, and we had a really good discussion about all things relational between the town and
Good.
Park and Rec. You know, there is a balance between when they're able to execute things that they can commit to, and things that they can't. One of the not a sticking point, but just one of the conversation pieces is that the school district has availability to grants that the town does not. So we want to be really thoughtful about our discussion and process as to how to include that and making them a full partner with the project itself. So
Definitely.
that's something that we don't have total control over, but it's something that we want to make sure that we're doing due diligence on. If that's something that it makes it take 6 months or a year longer, and they're able to provide funding for, you know, half of it or percentage of it, that I think we'd be best to have those conversations to make sure we're doing it properly.
No, I
so that
agree.
we're able to do
I
that. So,
definitely-
I know. I mean, honestly, like the best. You know, I'm happy to answer questions about any of these things. It's not a problem. You know, the best sort of forum that we have is just really everybody patient. We're working on it to do these things. And I know that's hard to have because, you know, I mean, honestly, like the flack that we got for the tennis courts was insurmountable for a period of time. You know, it was really, it seems silly, but you know.
But it worked.
That's the
Well-
problem, though.
But there's also
You're
things.
rewarding
But there's also
the-
things that you can fix. You know, with you know a schedule and you know X amount of money, and there's some things that aren't as straightforward.
Right.
But one thing I think, just really, my last comment
Yeah.
is when, like I was saying, when Kevin Kramer ran DPW, I'm not saying it was better or worse than, but we were more in the loop on what DPW is doing. And so if we knew, oh, they're replacing all the sidewalks in Madera Gardens right now, or they're doing, like, it's hard for us to know how much to push our projects when we don't know how much capacity they have. Don't you think it would be helpful a little bit to kind
Yeah.
of know? Or, you know, if they have to do all these projects, where do we fit in and how much, I don't know. It's just, it feels very much like I have no idea how much to push on them.
I think that the one that I think we kind of penciled Peter in to come twice a year.
I know. I mean, that doesn't feel like that much information to me, twice
Okay.
a year to get an update.
Maybe we should have him come through, figure it out. and have him come a
Quarterly
little
or
bit more
something?
often.
I mean, considering they're the person that's our project manager and doing all the
Right.
implementation of our projects.
The other thing I'm thinking about is only also if we can get him to have Todd come
It
to at
would
least a
be-
couple of our meetings also during the
It
year.
would be helpful. I think it would be helpful.
I'm sorry, go
Well,
ahead.
On the tennis court issue, I know some of those folks, and they have come to me, and I've said I'd bring it up here, and I have, and I feel like, you know, it would go nowhere, and so I think those folks got very frustrated. And I was no help to them, so I have
No,
to say,
they get-
you know,
they do
yeah,
get
they
frustrated.
became, you know, they're paying for the tennis court keys, paying for the use of the tennis courts, and, yeah, they finally got very frustrated with it all, so, and with winter here, and it's dark, and they can't use the courts that they're paying for. I mean, that's what happens when people get frustrated with the process.
I will say on the tennis court specifically, it wasn't a simple fix. As overly simplified as it sounds to fix the tennis court lights, it was not at all a simple fix. It was actually really complicated. But it was taken care of, so.
Okay. I have another question. It may not be a project, and I don't know if it's just me because I noticed it one night. Has there ever been any consideration of restriping the parking lot?
Yes.
Okay. Is that a project coming up, or is that another one for 19?
It's not anything that we have currently on the books, but it's something that's on the
No, I just noticed the other night parking there that
on the to-do
the
list.
stripes are kind of like almost non-existent. So,
Yeah, we held off a little bit on that because we did want to consider if we were going to relay out the parking lot to be able to accommodate for more vehicles in some way, shape, or form. So, but that is
15 compact spaces.
yeah, town center.
Don't do it. Don't, please don't. As a driver of a Honda Pilot, please. I beg
Anything
you.
else?
Not unless the commission has anything.
Any
else.
questions for
Thanks,
Mario?
Mario.
Yep.
No? Okay. One thing before we get to business items, which I forgot, it's not on the agenda, but the last meeting we had back in October 22nd meeting, the audio did not work. So that meeting was not recorded at all. So if we can just get it in the minutes for this meeting, that one wasn't recorded. And just really briefly, hold on a minute. Erin Dugan from Developing Disabled Dance and Team Program, she gave a presentation. And then under business items, Dave Wilkinson gave his report to the commission. We reviewed the fall summary. The discussion of possible action on animals in the park ordinance, that was tabled because we were a couple commissioners short. And discussing possible action on rescheduling November, December meetings. We decided, I believe, to cancel November and just have one meeting in December, reschedule that because of the timing. And then the approval of minutes, if we, from September, if we can get on the agenda for January, just reapprove those again.
Right, because we don't have minutes saying that we approved the agenda. Got it.
Correct.
Okay.
So if you can just get
Understood.
everything, well, I guess it's in the minutes already because it's on audio. But again, I think it was just slip up that it didn't get recorded. And with that, we'll go ahead and move to business items. 6.1 review of 2018 winter's spring brochure.
Right, so I don't really have much to report on this other than you guys have a draft in front of you. It's not the final draft, but you do have a draft of the brochure. Brian's been working pretty tirelessly on this for the past several weeks, working with our different users and community groups and instructors to finalize dates, times, prices, graphics, and working with a graphic designer to put that out. So we are expecting that this will be out in print by the end of the week, if not early next week. We're in the queue for this week and over the holidays. It'll be online by the end of the week, the final version. So just as a preview to the commission, you guys can see what's there. And for sort of future reference, we will be, there'll be more heavy review of the programs that are in the brochure through the review of the ad hoc programming committee between the Park and Rec Department and the Intergenerational Center. So you'll be seeing more previews of that, more reporting on that, I should say, from the commissioners and myself who'll be at those meetings.
I know she missed one commissioner.
Uh-oh. I'm not looking at it, so go for it. What is it?
It's our newest commissioner.
Does it look like it's cut off, or is it?
Pardon?
Does it look like it's cut off?
We need to add Cambry under,
Thank you.
Oh, no, it's not, okay.
That was a test to see if you noticed.
yeah.
Yeah, so make sure that that's added.
Okay, thanks.
Spelled wrong.
O-N?
No, the last, there's an H on Sarah.
And Sarah. All right, okay. Perfect.
Mine was misspelled for a couple of years till somebody
Mine-
noticed.
So you get some respect around here.
Any other questions on the winter brochure? I'll open up for public comment and close it for public comment.
So when did Brian want comments, if we have any?
This week?
This week, okay.
6.2 review of 2018 fall survey results.
Yeah, so the ad hoc committee did get a small preview of the survey results that we did. We got a really good I'm sorry, as did the Executive Advisory Committee, which we did meet.
I know, that's what I was trying to.
And we did have a really, we had really good feedback, really good group that responded to the survey. And what I've shared with the different groups that have previewed it is that I think it's a really good springboard for some other good surveys that we can have. We did a fairly broad stroke of demographics and programming questions and interest levels on different things. So the couple of things that I want to bring your attention to, one was the percentages of residency, which we asked was the first question. So 60-ish% from Corte Madera, 25% from Larkspur. The childcare question was interesting because there is a fairly large group of people that are in need of childcare. Just continuing that conversation with the different levels that we've had between programs at the Intergenerational Center, Kids Club, Summer Playground. So I think it's important to keep that information in front of us to continue those conversations. Another one that was really interesting was
Dog park or dog
yes,
leash?
thank you. Where is it here? Yes, okay. The question about the municipal code allowing animals in the park. And shockingly, the commission is a wonderful litmus test for the community, as we were pretty much 50-50 divided, I believe, on support for changing the municipal code and not changing it. So I thought that was really interesting, which means I think that we have a really good commission, a really good thought process, and really thoughtful conversation about these subjects. So it'll be something that is one of the next items to talk about, but I thought that was really significant. It was really interesting to see. The commission will have a chance to review the comments. I'll have an executive copy of that available for the commission to look at. It's more, and I actually did want to do one more round of PR to get some more responses for the survey. So this survey, we've decided on a staff level that it's not going to be posted anywhere. It's posted here. It's in the public record, so the commission has access to it, as does the public, and we're not going to put it on the website any more than it already is. But we are going to do another round of outreach right after the new year to get some more comment.
So these same questions, no
Yes,
change to the
yes,
format?
absolutely, yeah, no,
Okay.
absolutely. And I think, but I do think that this is something that, in terms of yearly review discussion, I think it's something important that the commission, we should discuss in terms of having some sort of annual survey, and more specifically, some maybe smaller surveys that are more specific to things, whether it be facilities, programming, whatever it is. So I think it's a good starting point. I think the feedback that we got in the comments was that people are really happy that we're asking them questions. And I think for us and for staff and the commission, the same. It's really important that we keep the conversation going. We engage people, the community, into coming to our meetings and discussing different aspects of the Park and Recreation Department. And also being able to respond to concerns, as well as not being able to overpromise and underdeliver, which I think has been part of our challenge in the past.
When you say additional outreach, what do you mean by that? We sending it out?
Yeah,
doing
we'll
another
do
blast to
another
everybody?
blast out. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. We captured approximately 10%, which is pretty good. Pretty good level, I think.
Okay. Any questions for Mario on the survey or comments?
Did you put it on Nextdoor, or how did you?
Yeah, it was on Nextdoor, it was on Facebook, it was on an email blast that was sent out to our list of over 4,000 people, 3,500, 3,800, I can't remember exactly, but yeah, we did.
Was it
and
on-
it's currently on the website as well.
Was it online if I wanted to take it like through the website?
Yeah, it's on our homepage. Yep.
Did you by chance have stats on if people started it but didn't finish it?
I think that we wouldn't have an answer. It wouldn't have gone into the reporting if people didn't finish it.
Okay. So it wouldn't be that people are finishing the early questions but not getting to the later questions?
You can
have to
skip
finish
them,
the
you
whole
can
thing.
certainly skip them, but you have to,
get to the end,
you have to
yeah.
get to the end, yeah. Sorry, Camry, what was that?
Well, if you have to get to the end, then it doesn't matter. But I was
Yeah.
gonna say, you could add up the number of people who either skipped or responded on each side.
Exactly, yeah. So the high number on the skipped and the high number on the answered, you get.
Yeah, there were a couple that had skipped in the hundreds.
Yeah, and I think that was important, because I think that actually, I sent it to a handful of people that, their feedback was, that it was very, kid-centric, you know, so it was really, if you don't have any children, that, the feedback was that, you know, it was sort of almost like kind of moot to take the survey, which I also thought was an interesting response, because there's, the leading questions are having to do with, you know, youth programming,
Right.
in general, which I think is what we wanted. I think that's what the commission was interested in reaching out for. So, which is fine. I mean, that's good feedback, and that's, you know, we have different means of different questions to ask in the future for different demographic groups.
Right. To me, what I think about doing, because I make it sound simple, it's only a couple of keystrokes, is posting on the digital marquee, you know, just something along the line, you know,
Take the survey.
take our park and recreation survey at, you can put the website or however you want to do that. It's just another channel to get people's attention. Like they're driving down the street and they go, oh, park and rec
That's a good
survey. I mean, you would never know that it was sourced from that. Well, you may, but it's just another vehicle, and that digital marquee, that's part of what it's there for.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other questions from Lauren? Okay, public comment, closed public comment. 6.3, discussion on possible action on animals in the park ordinance. I would suggest that we table this because we're short 2 commissioners, if everybody's okay with that. And hopefully in January, we get everybody so we can kind of close that out,
Sure.
one way or the other. 6.4, review of skate park rules.
Yeah, so this is just a review. There's no decisions being made this evening or recommendations. What I would be looking for is feedback from the commission on how we want to move forward with this item. This is something that we've talked about probably for about, I think the last time we talked was probably about a year ago. But with the advent of our new upgraded skate park as of a year ago, or a year and a half now, we did discuss changing the rules. I know there was some conversation about scooters, bikes, things like that. So it's something that, those are our current rules. We have looked at rules for different parks. So we'll be looking at any direction from the commission and what we'd like to bring back to you in January to finalize it, if we are going to make an amendment to those rules and update them. So I'd be happy to take those comments if you have any.
Yeah, I think the most frequent complaint that we've gotten here and just outside of these meetings is non-skaters, scooter riders in there. A lot of people bring really little kids in there. So we talked about just a large sign, not the ordinance sign, but a large sign that said skaters only and an automatically closing gate. That would probably solve that problem. I think it's worth considering the scooter issue. I mean, there's skate parks all over the country, and they almost always allow 2-wheeled scooters. And then it would be nice if I had a kid in there to see more helmets. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that, but just encouraging the kids. And, you know, some of the older kids who brought the skate park to light, I think, you know, some of them don't always wear helmets, and they're sort of seen as leaders, so we might encourage them to
Sure.
try to take a leadership role there.
Are these rules in line with other skateboard parks? Were you guys like any high-level survey?
You know, I will say that the skate parks they do have a very different set of rules. I'm sorry, they're not drastically different, but there's some that are very specific to parks themselves. You know, some very specifically say no amplified music allowed. You know, I mean, there's things that they're really specific to some certain parks, and some do allow bikes. Some allow animals. Some allow scooters, some allow bike time. It just sort of depends on how it was designed. And the big one for the cities in general is the liability issue. So that's as long as there's a certain level of criteria. I don't imagine that we want to necessarily take away anything that's on there. It's more of updating so that they're more current with the current use of the skate park itself.
Do these have to be run past the city attorney? I think we talked
Yeah,
about
what
that
we
a
would
while
do
ago.
is we'd run it past city attorney as well.
Okay.
If there's substantial changes to it that would be potentially out of line of the municipal code.
So I guess our next steps, trying to think this out. Next steps, getting any input from us before the next meeting, and then running it past the city attorney, then we get a final version and vote on it.
It'd probably take 2 meetings. What I'd say is I'd probably, what I was thinking was present to you rules from several different parks in the area
Okay.
for review. And maybe take the highlights from those, run those past the city attorney, and look at it in terms of recommendations from their part. And if there's
Okay.
something the commission wants to specifically look at, we look at it at that point. So a good draft review in January, and then a final review in February.
Okay. January's going to be a busy meeting.
So I think, given where it is and that the little kids' soccer is right there, I think the self-closing gate is a necessity. I don't know if that goes along with this because that's a project.
Yeah, I mean, it's a maintenance item. There are self-closing gates on it right now. I would venture to say if they work terribly well.
Yeah, I don't think
That's
they
something
do.
that they could be changed out, which would not be a huge project in itself.
And then do we consider an age limit? Like you must be a certain age? Just for that liability's sake, the 3 or 4-year-old goes in and gets injured.
Kind of like nobody under X age without parent supervision.
Exactly, something along those lines.
I think it does say skateboarders only. Maybe not.
And do we
No, it says
know,
skateboarders and inline skates only.
are scooters and bicycles damaging or to the ramps?
Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that because I meant to mention a minute ago. I think that's a really interesting question because I think part of that discussion has to do with age as well as if it actually does any damage to the ramps. I would be almost certain that they would not do any damage to the ramps. I think it's more of a question of age as well as having 2 different types of vehicles that maneuver differently in the same space, combined with age. I think that's probably the best way I can explain it. But yeah, I think that's a really interesting part of the conversation for the commission to have.
Ain't no motorized vehicles either, right?
Certainly not.
We got skateboards now and bikes that are electric.
I mean, exactly, and again, even more to the point of updating, these things to fit modern uses of
Right.
Yeah.
the park, drones, et cetera.
Any other questions for Mario?
No.
Public comment? I'll close public comment. 6.5, appointment of Commissioner Elson and Commissioner Miles to the Ad Hoc Programming Committee.
Yeah, so this item was brought up by the Executive Advisory Committee to make sure that we made a formal motion to appoint Commissioner Elson and Commissioner Miles, who have graciously volunteered to attend those meetings and report back to the commission in order to provide feedback to the commission. So it was more of a point of order for the commission to officially appoint them to this Ad Hoc Programming Committee.
So
I'll
do we need
say,
a motion?
Mario, that it was a point of order, but it was also because when we discussed it, we wanted you guys to be able to say, we are officially here on behalf of the Park and Rec Commission.
Yes.
and-
Okay.
and
Yeah,
make it
sorry,
known that
exactly,
you-
that's
you-
good.
You
No.
weren't just attending as citizens who happened to be on the Park and Rec
Okay.
Commission.
Right.
This will give you
No.
a lot of pull now, I'm sure.
Ah,
Well, I mean, and that's important because we do have, there's a member of the council on it. There's, I mean, anybody can attend it. It's not any sort of like overly formal meeting, but the point being that the Commissioner Ellison and Miles are there on behalf of the commission
Right.
to be their eyes and ears to that,
Right.
to that group. And thank you for being there. It's actually, really glad you guys are there.
Yeah. I think it's going to be really good.
Yeah.
So
do
just
we need to make a motion?
we need-
Yeah, if we can make a
Okay,
motion.
I make a motion to appoint Commissioner Ellison and Commissioner Miles to the ad hoc program.
Is there a second?
Second.
And since
I would
Commissioner Miles
just-
has no ability to fight this.
I would just add one thing. Do we want to make them 2-year terms so they coincide with their existing commissioner terms? Or we just want to leave it open?
I think it can be open.
Leave it open, okay. Okay, so we had a motion, there's a second, any discussion? Okay, call for the vote.
All right, Commissioner Weigert,
Abstain.
Yes.
Commissioner Volgan,
Yes.
Commissioner Phipps,
Yes.
Commissioner Elson,
Abstain.
Vice Chair
Conflict.
Janowski,
Yes.
and Chair Kaczynski.
Yes. Congratulations.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, thank you.
And just a real brief, so that group is going to be meeting once a month. We're going to try to meet once a month for the next maybe 2 or 3 months. And then that meeting, once we have some really good direction and work in front of us, we'll probably meet more like every other month or quarterly,
Okay.
just to set the expectation for the commission.
Do you mind, I don't know if I can attend them, do you mind just adding me to, is there an email thing that goes out saying this is when we're going to
Yes,
meet?
yeah.
Can you just
I know.
add me to that list?
Sure.
if you
I'd
don't
like to
mind?
be on it too.
Okay, moving to 6 point, there's no public comment because the public left. 6.6, review of resolution supporting LWCF.
Yes.
Reading glasses, that was.
So this is actually really interesting. The Conservation Fund has, in the short term, lost federal funding to continue their work. And the way that it affects Corte Madera is, if you can believe it or not, is a grant that the town received back in 1986, 82 to really develop Town Park. I mean, that was really the seed money that we had from them to develop the park. So they reached out to us, as they did to several other agencies in Marin, Park and Rec departments, community services districts, et cetera, for support. So we had a good conversation. I did have discussions with my cohorts and other departments. The County of Marin were all very supportive of their efforts and appreciate their help. So they've asked the town councils to provide either a letter of support or resolution. Town of Corte Madera has decided to do a resolution, and the council will be looking at that tomorrow evening, sort of in line with their deadlines of budget planning. So we brought it in front of the commission to review and discuss if necessary.
Can you bring it up real quick?
Yeah, absolutely,
Thanks.
sorry. But it was really, I actually appreciated that they reached out and they were able to really give some statistics in terms of what, they had provided for the town of Corte Madera, because there's really nobody around to verify that information other than the records that they had. So it's good to,
And this is a resolution that's going before town council?
tomorrow night, yes.
Okay.
So I'd be looking for, certainly, looking for the commission to echo support for it and go on record for the council tomorrow night that they approve the resolution to move forward.
So
Okay.
what's after the whereas section? Not to the.
To the therefore section?
Yes.
I mean, there's like a page and a quarter where it has in one paragraph on therefore.
Like all documents.
Expresses support and urges Congress to act swiftly to enact full funding for the permanent reauthorization of the Land and Water Conservation Fund. They were kind enough to provide the resolution for us.
I was going to say, who drafted this?
Yeah, I just.
So
looked
they're
that
just
up last
touching,
weekend.
they're touching towns and cities everywhere and looking to deliver a giant stack of
Yes.
letters of support,
Yes,
essentially.
that's exactly,
Can you scroll back up?
absolutely.
Somebody want to make a motion, otherwise I'll make it. Okay, go ahead, I'll let you make it.
I make a motion to sign the document.
Support the resolution.
Support the resolution.
The resolution.
Second?
Second, any discussion? Call for the vote.
Commissioner Weigert,
Yeah.
Commissioner Blomgren. Yes. Commissioner Phipps.
Yes.
Commissioner Elson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Janowski.
Yes.
And Chair Casissa.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
All right, we have no other routine other matters. Future agenda items, we have the skateboard park, we have the dog leash issue, we have the September minutes. I think we have the wish list again, right, that you're gonna bring back to us?
That'll be a formal item, yes.
And hopefully Peter
And then
Brown
Peter-
presentation.
Not hopefully, he will. And Peter will be here, right, to do a presentation?
Yeah, I did ask him to be, if he'd be available the January, or February. He said either
Perfect.
one was fine.
Okay,
Okay.
so let's hope for January.
Was there anything else I missed? I was scribbling a lot.
That's good.
Okay. If anybody has anything between now and then, just email Mario, email myself. It's probably easier to email Mario. And with that,
I imagine that the
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Executive Advisory Committee would probably shoot to meet maybe the second week of January.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
okay. And if nobody has anything else, then we're adjourned.